Howdy folks, welcome back to the TJR Auto channel. My name is Tyler, and in today's video, we're finally going to be driving this piece of shit. So for anybody who did not see the last GTO video, basically we got the whole rear end back up in the car, subframe and whatnot, all that jazz, suspension, yada yada yada. And then I left the video off with having a problem where I could not bleed the brakes. They just wouldn't bleed. Like I was bleeding them, but they were not bleeding correctly. If that makes any sense. They're very spongy. They don't work right, and they're just not bled correctly. So when I kept trying to bleed the brakes, I really came into having problems with the bleeders on just the front calipers. So I got these reman calipers off Rock Auto. Haven't had a problem with the driver's side front one. Then we go over to the passenger side. We can notice I still have the old caliper on it. And the reason for that is when I put the reman caliper on this side and tried bleeding the brakes, I found out the hard way after bleeding the rear two and then getting to this one, the bleeder hole was stripped out, so it did not seal. That was before I even touched it. I should have checked it when I pulled the part out of the box, and I didn't because I'm fucking stupid. But I had to send that caliper back, get a replacement one. So finally, we have received that part. It is now back yonder. Cover that up. But we have our reman passenger side front caliper. So we got to swap this bad boy on, and then we can try bleeding the brakes again. I think at least 2 people recommended it. I went to Harbor Freight and got this $30 vacuum brake bleeder. It seemed to work actually pretty good on the rear, so obviously I'll go over again how to use this thing, at least how I'm using it. So I'm not going to be using the brand new banjo bolts that came with the stainless steel hoses. I'm actually going to be using the banjo bolt that came with the new caliper. But I'm going to be holding on to this just in case. I didn't tighten it up, so we're all good to go. The problem that I had with this one is the bleeder actually broke off inside this caliper. Then I tried drilling it out to get it out. I accidentally drilled the hole too big, of course, and it just was downhill from there. It was a very bad day. Yeah, not fun. So that's kind of why I gave up on the GTO for a little while. Kind of got the truck back into working order. But now that we have a new caliper, we might as well visit this car again. Well, folks, I did a quick bleed on this caliper last night after I installed it. Everything seems to be holding fine. There's no puddles of fluid under the car this morning. The master seems to have held all the fluid that I left in it yesterday. And I also did do a quick bleed on the driver's side front caliper. This one I had never bled prior, until this video. And also, same deal. There's no puddle underneath. Everything seems to be sealing. Once again, we didn't lose any fluid out of the master. So now I've technically bled all 4 corners of this car. Hopping in the car, pumping the pedal a couple times, it feels like we have brakes. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. So what I want to do is bleed the system again. So figure I'll show off the $30 Harbor Freight vacuum bleeder. Now, first things first, comes with this bottle, right? So you fill this bottle up with brake fluid. You screw on this top that has this little valve. And essentially, it also comes with a bunch of these different fittings. It's supposed to clip onto the master so that you can basically auto-fill the master. So what I mean by that is if I open this valve, we can see it kind of just trickles out, right? So the idea is while you're vacuum bleeding, you're pulling fluid out of the system, you want fluid to stay in the system by allowing this to basically slowly drain into the master. So what we're going to do, this is what I've been doing. I found the one tip works pretty well to kind of jam this thing in here. And then we can open up the valve. Now, if we don't disrupt the car, this won't fall over. If you hit the car a little too hard, this will fall over and get brake fluid everywhere. Ask me how I know. But with the valve open, now it is very slowly putting some brake fluid into the master Well, we're going to start pulling some fluid out. So from my understanding, this is essentially the brains of the operation, really, with this little bleeder kit. So we have this little reservoir, can, tube, canister, whatever the hell you want to call it. You have to have your own air hose hooked up to it, and you have this little trigger here. So from my understanding, and again, of course, I really didn't read directions on this, when you have your air hose hooked up and you pull on this trigger, that is putting pressurized air through this system. And this end, you can actually see, is broken off. That has usually like a little silencer on it, because this is just blowing air pressure directly out. One way or another, when this is blowing the air pressure out this way, it's creating a vacuum on this white tube. Now this white tube runs down into here, and from there, runs out, and it comes out to this little guy. So that little white tube basically will be pulling a vacuum from this little port here. Now this little port, you basically just crack your bleeder loose. I already have the wrench on it, it's hard to see, but we crack the bleeder loose, we throw this on, we pull the trigger, and then essentially the bleeder is open, allowing fluid out, and we're pulling a vacuum on it, so it is sucking fluid through the lines, basically from the master, through the system, through this caliper. So that basically is bleeding everything, bleeding the caliper up to this point. And when we're running this, I'll try to show it. It's kind of hard to see. It's kind of hard to see in person, so it's probably going to be hard to see on camera. You can see the fluid flowing through this line. Now, when you first start bleeding, you'll see some air bubbles flowing through with it. When you're done bleeding, it'll basically just be a solid stream of fluid. So I'm going to crack this bleeder open, get this hooked on. This is a very noisy process, having the air compressor run, as well as basically air pressure just flying out of this gun. So it's not pleasant, but it seems to be getting the job done. So I essentially just continued that super loud process I just showed you. This is roughly how much fluid I just pulled through that driver's side rear caliper till I felt comfortable enough with how the fluid looked moving through the tube. Now, I'm at the point where I've already flowed so much fresh fluid through the system. The system is essentially flush. It's all fresh fluid. So I don't have any nasty stuff coming out anymore. But when I did first start doing this, I had a lot of nasty stuff coming out of these lines. So aside from just bleeding the brakes, this is also great for flushing the system out, which can never hurt, having new fluid in any sort of system, on anything in a car. But now I'm basically just going to continue this process around the car at every wheel. It's nice that this is not labor intensive whatsoever. You're basically just cracking a bleeder, putting this little fitting onto the bleeder, and then just squeezing that trigger. Now, like I said, or I think I said, this is supposed to have a silencer on it, which is supposed to make it a little bit quieter. In my opinion, it was still pretty damn loud. And the trigger is also supposed to be longer so that you can pop it into this little clip and basically just walk away from it. For whatever reason, that broke off almost instantly, and this just broke off after being soaked in brake fluid. So I have to sit here and hold it, which isn't the end of the world. But again, it's just a really loud process. So I'm going to try knocking this out, and hopefully these brakes will bleed. Fucking crazy. That's actually fucking crazy.
There we go, people. TJR got me laughing like a little girl again. The GTO's back.
She's back. It wants to break.
Oh yeah.
Definitely not because they're bald or anything.
Oh yeah. Holy shit, dude.
It was pretty good though. It was healthy. It doesn't feel squirrely or anything. I think the rear end's in straight.
I think so.
Alrighty folks, well, as you just saw, the GTO is back. She's running good, she's stopping good, and most importantly, just overall, is pretty damn good. Now, I haven't had a chance to yet, but next thing up on the list basically is take the car, put it back in the garage, put it up in the air, and do a bolt check on everything involving the rear. So I have put a couple miles on the car at this point, and there was no weird noises, no weird feelings. Everything seems to be pretty damn sturdy. So I'm not worried that anything has come loose or will be coming loose in the rear, but the next thing up on the list is definitely a good solid bolt check. Make sure that everything is good. Make sure nothing is backing out or anything of that nature. But like I said, the car drove and felt phenomenal. It's definitely the best this car has ever felt, and I'm pretty damn happy with it, not gonna lie. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a very happy camper that we got this thing back up on the road, and like I said, so far, fingers crossed, everything seems to be doing pretty well. Unfortunately, with good comes bad. We have to revisit the issue that I have up front, which is actually two big issues. One, I need to rebuild the front struts because I may or may not have put the strut mount bearing things, those rubber things I talked about in the video where I put the lowering springs in up front. There's cupped washers, and I may or may not have assumed the wrong thing and installed all four of them wrong. So we have to revisit that, which I'll probably just end up doing off camera. It won't take me that long to do. So there's that. The big thing up front, though, is the steering rack leaks. Now, I know it's a common thing on these cars for whatever reason. If you have long tubes on a GTO, usually it takes out the seals inside of the power steering rack. Now, a new power steering rack is not cheap. It's not that easy to find either. And I just don't care to spend $700 to $1,000 on a power steering rack. I think that is kind of absurd. So we have a couple options. Kind of got to sort through those options and see what's going to make the most sense for me. But the power steering rack leaking like a sieve on this car is kind of the reason why it's still going to be parked for a while. Now, while we still have some nice weather, like beautiful weather like today, I think it would be a good idea to get the AFR gauge hooked up in the car and go do the final tuning for this thing before wintertime hits. Like I said, I'm a very happy camper with this thing. I wish I could have grabbed more footage for you guys of driving it and having fun, but I've been super sick. I have bronchitis. I've been out of work for a couple days, so it's been a little tough kind of juggling the cars on top of everything else. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. I truly do appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit the subscribe button to see some more content. Also, make sure to drop a like and drop a comment down below. Hopefully, I catch you guys in the next one.